2 years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
There's desperation and anguish.
More than 80,000 Afghans have since arrived in America, but this story is still unfolding. I'm Andrea Martin. In my new podcast, Stranger Becomes Neighbor, we'll find out what happens to these new arrivals in our communities. Who would help our newest neighbors? Follow us at kslpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen.
Hey, welcome to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction. More importantly, it's about recovery. My name is Casey Scott, and my road to recovery began with Pinnacle Recovery. If you know somebody who needs some help, have them do what I did and give Pinnacle Recovery a call. Hey, Dr. Matt, so you just said something before the mics went on.
Uh-oh.
You said it's the professor in me.
Oh.
Are we talking about Gilligan's Island?
I wish I was that fun of a professor.
The professor was pretty cool.
He was cool. He was always building coconut phones and cool
couldn't
things
fix
like
a hole
that.
in the boat.
No, he couldn't fix the hole in the boat.
Because who do you think I would be on Gilligan's Island? I think I'm a little bit of Gilligan.
I think you're a little bit of the Gilligan, a little bit of Skipper, though.
Yeah.
I feel like you're kind of like that Good Time Charlie guy who just kind of shows up. And,
Good Time Charlie guy.
Yeah.
Hey, the weather outside is frightful. That means Thanksgiving is right around the corner.
Right.
And then we've got the holidays.
Yep.
And, you know, the thing, I really love Thanksgiving.
Yeah? Yeah, I do too.
And it means a lot to me this year because there's a lot of stuff that I'm thankful for.
Yeah, I bet.
And it means... I don't
Mostly me and Josh, right?
Yeah. I'm thankful for this podcast, but I really am thankful for both of you guys because you believed in me and you show up every week and we're doing amazing things with this podcast and I couldn't be happier. But I am really right now looking at life through new eyes, which sounds stupid, but because...
Well, it's true though, right?
Yeah. They're not bloodshot.
Right. They're not bleary.
Yeah. I don't have these big bags underneath my eyes.
Right.
If you knew how many fights me and my mom got in about the bags underneath my eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, she wanted me to go get them taken out with when I was on TV. She was like, you just look like you've been punched in the face. What is wrong? And I go, it's just genetics. I didn't want to say it was Bud Light, but it's just genetics,
Yeah.
And so I started to wear the glasses to hide the bags underneath my eyes. That should show you what lengths I went to keep that secret. And it wasn't really a secret, but what I would do to explain stupid stuff.
To make excuses, right?
Yeah. And that's what I was doing. But I am really thankful for what's going on right now in my life. And I am blessed, and I really do love it. But what does Thanksgiving mean to you?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, on the kind of funny, lighter side of that question would be my kids and I were talking the other day about how Thanksgiving's the ultimate lazy holiday, right?
Yes.
You just have an excuse to do nothing, just to eat, lay around, maybe go to a movie, just take a nap, whatever. It's okay on Thanksgiving. But the reality is, I was thinking about like Thanksgiving, really, like most people, is family. I grew up with my dad's side of the family and my grandma Janet always putting on these huge family Thanksgivings with all the cousins running around, and those are some of my very favorite memories as a kid growing up. So I try to recreate that as best I can as an adult now. Grandma Janet's gone, but she left that legacy of family, and it was just okay to be crazy and run around the house and have the kids everywhere and food everywhere and, like more pies than anyone could ever eat.
A gluttonous holiday.
Yeah, but it's just that family together. Everybody gets to be who they are, and I felt loved and accepted on those Thanksgivings. And so I think as a dad, that's my goal for Thanksgiving is to provide some of that. I can't be Grandma Janet. She was pretty special, but try to recreate some of that for my kids.
When I think of Thanksgiving when I was a young kid, I always think of Light Bright.
The Light Bright? Oh, yeah.
Do you remember Light
Those
Bright?
Are fun, yeah.
For those of you who don't know what Light Bright is, it used to be this box that had a light bulb in the back, and then you'd put a black sheet of paper on it, and then you had these little colored pins,
yeah,
that you would put in there, and you could do like a turkey, or it was like a Light Bright
any design you wanted
on steroids.
Yeah.
And my grandpa, check out this name. His name was Gorman Irwin.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good.
Gorman Irwin.
He sounds like a character in a book.
Yeah. And so Gorman Irwin had Light Bright, and he had all these different pens, and we'd go down there and we'd do all this stuff, and that was cool until I was about 13.
Yeah.
Parents don't like it when you make boobs out of the Light Bright.
I was going to say, I have a feeling I know what you were making out of
they're like,
Light
no,
Bright.
Casey's too old to play with Light Bright. And so that's what I think about. But, I also just am thankful for everything that's in my life. And I'm thankful for you. And I like when you sat down and you said, Casey, let's talk about nuns. And so I want to know where this is going.
Yeah.
How do we bring nuns into the recovery world?
Nuns, well, first of all, there is a famous study that maybe some people learned about when they were in college, and that is the nun study on happiness. And so one of the things that I want to talk about today, leading into this holiday of gratitude, is happiness and why is being happy, how does it really affect us? And so in 1930, about 200 nuns entered a convent. And the reason that the nuns were the subject of the study is because nuns lead a very consistent life. So they have the same schedule every day. They get up, go to bed.
Very routine.
Very routine, and the routines all match. So that's nice for a study. Their diets are pretty much consistent and the same across nuns. One nun isn't eating Twinkies while the other one's a vegetarian. Like, they all kind of have very similar diets. Mm-hmm. They have basically the same access to health care all throughout their lives. And so nuns kind of make a good population to study. They don't, there's not alcohol, and their sexual behaviors probably shouldn't be any, I guess. And, all that sort of stuff is consistent.
I like that you said probably.
Right. Probably. Well, there's the rogue nun, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the idea was they wanted to study attitudes of these nuns and how it affected them over time. And so each nun at this time in 1930, when they entered the convent, they were asked to write a self-statement. And these nuns wrote this kind of manifesto about their intention of becoming a nun and what they hoped their life would be like and why they were doing it. It was a self-statement. And then these statements were analyzed for the language that was used. Things that had to do with religion, that had to do with health, that had to do with family, all these sorts of statements were identified in their writings. And then over time, actually over 70 years,
wow.
So the entire life of these nuns, the nuns were kind of followed up on periodically. How were they doing? What were they, what were their behaviors like? What had they accomplished? What was their health like?
Are they happy they did this?
Yeah, all those kinds of things. And at the end of the study, 70 years out, so what they had found is the following. All those things about their, whether they wrote their spiritual statements, their religious intentions, their family statements, things that they wrote about, none of that really predicted much. But there was one type of statement that did predict longevity in health and happiness, and that was those were statements of optimism, positivity. Nuns who had a high rate of looking at life as a glass half full, mm-hmm. lived longer. By age 85, 90% of the nuns, up to age 85, 90% of those nuns that had written optimistic or positive statements were still alive. They had required much less health care over their life. They had a healthier, more robust life, and they had accomplished most of what they had set out to accomplish in those original statements, as opposed to the nuns that had a lack of these optimistic, positive statements.
Wow.
So what we're seeing is there's this connection between people who are optimistic, positive, glass half full sorts of people, and things that you may not think would predict it, like their actual physical health. And the correlation there is our emotional states affect our autonomic nervous system. That automatic system that just runs our body all the time, runs our organs and our sleeping and waking and breathing and digestion and all of that. So basically the core aspect of your bodily system is highly affected by the emotions that you carry around with you every day.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a question, and I think I know the answer. Is happiness a choice?
Yes and no. I think happiness, we know from research, is something you can develop. So in that sense, it is a choice, and it does start with a choice to develop it, sort of like being fit is a choice, right? Like, we know that there are all these gyms out there, and people have tennis shoes they can run on the street with, and we know that if a person makes a choice to be consistent in getting fit, that their health will improve over time if they stick with it. Mm-hmm. And so in that sense, I would say yes, happiness is a choice. Being unhappy is also a normal part of the human experience. So even a person who makes that choice to see things optimistically, trains their mind to have more positive emotions, they may, of course, experience downturns in their mood as well.
Because you can't always be happy.
That's part of life. You can't have one without the other. But I will say, yeah, overall it is a choice, and it's an effort sometimes. But there are ways, things people can actually do that we've shown with research improve our happiness, our positivity, our positive emotions, all those things that we want that those nuns had. Like, I would love to live to be 85 plus and be in good health.
Yes.
And I would say, while my grandma Janet, who we just talked about, wasn't a nun, she was a fun, optimistic, happy person. She loved having the family over, and she lived until she was 92 years old in pretty good health. And so I think that those sorts of research studies really fill me with a lot of hope. And I want to talk today a little bit about gratitude and how gratitude plays a role in that.
Now, in Pinnacle Recovery, where I went to recovery, gratitude played a big part in the 45 days I was there. They like to focus on the mind, body, and soul. And gratitude is something we started out every morning with. We'd start out with a meditation, and then we'd write something that we were grateful for. Mm-hmm. And kind of let that be our guiding light for the day. Mm-hmm. And with the assumption that is, if you focus on that, mm-hmm. You're focusing on the positive. Right. And so being mindful is that, yes, I am going to have bad thoughts, and I'm going to be constantly reminded about my failures in the past. But what I can do is acknowledge those, not hide them, not put them down deep.
Right. You can't stuff them away.
No, but acknowledge them and then let them go, but then just try to focus and move towards the path of light.
Yeah, that's the choice part, right?
Yeah.
And the cognitive psychologist in me jumped on what you were saying, because what we talk to people about a lot is this pattern: thoughts, feelings, behaviors. How we think about things has a huge impact on how we feel, those emotions that we have all day. Mm-hmm. And those emotions definitely affect what we end up doing. And so you can see how a person like you were in recovery, you're in this facility, you're thinking about, you could focus all day long on all the things that you'd lost, and your job and the kids and all those things. That would lead you to kind of down, negative emotions, maybe hopelessness even. And the behavior might be to not fully invest in the program, that sort of thing. Whereas their goal, I'm sure, to do gratitude in the morning was very purposeful, and it fits that pattern, which is like, hey, if we can get these folks that are probably at their rock bottom,
lowest point.
Hopefully it doesn't get any lower.
Yeah.
They're at their rock bottom. If we can get them to grasp onto a focus, a thought that is gratitude, and that improves their mood, then it's likely to play out in their behaviors all day long. And that's a struggle every day to get up and, like you said, you acknowledge the negativity. Yep, it's there. Boy, I really blew it. These are my problems. But I'm not going to focus on that. My focus is going to be gratitude. And the reason they chose gratitude is because gratitude has been studied a lot. And it's kind of one of those things where psychologists sometimes say stuff where everybody goes, well, duh, we all knew that. But
we all didn't know that.
Well, we don't all know that. But sometimes psychologists play a good role in just proving kind of the old adage is true. And so there's a lot, anybody, if you go back 100 years, people were preaching and grandmas were teaching that you should be grateful, right? And, I don't know if you guys did this, but when I was a kid, you go around the table at Thanksgiving, say what you're grateful for. Gratitude's always been acknowledged as it being important, but now we can actually link it to some powerful effects. It can increase your mood, increase your hopefulness, and we know those things can actually make you live longer.
We used to go around the table and say what we're thankful for and then take a shot. And I'm not lying.
I believe it.
That was really a deal, Yeah. And so I'm going to do it this year.
At what age could you opt into that?
Well,
not at the kid table.
18.
18?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will take a shot, but
Canadian Thanksgiving.
It'll be this right here. Look what I'm Canada Dry Cranberry Ginger Ale. It's out for the holidays. I love it.
Okay.
And I'll take a swig of that. But I want to define gratitude because it seems to be a buzzword in the recovery world right now. So what is the definition of gratitude?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say, gratitude is when you acknowledge something positive in your life and you sit with that for a minute. You experience the positive emotions that come with it. You are thankful, grateful. You're showing appreciation for something that has come into your life and benefited you in some way. And then part of gratitude, I believe, if you're really grateful, then the second part is expressing it. So there's experiencing and recognizing the benefit of something in your life.
It made you feel good.
Made you feel good, benefited you, somehow, made your life better. You're acknowledging that, you're dwelling on it, but then expressing it. I don't think you can be fully grateful unless you occasionally at least express those feelings to other people.
A gun in the face.
Then all of a sudden they all kind of lined up. They pointed their guns at me. And this is the point where I thought, I'm going to die today.
Started 2 years of horror for an American in Venezuela.
They said, you need to give us your phone and get ready because you're coming with us.
I'm Becky Bruce, and I spent a year researching and piecing together Josh and Tammy Holt's story about their ordeal in a notorious prison.
That's when everything started to turn bad. We had another pound on the door. Boom, boom, boom. And there was the police once again.
You can binge all of the episodes of Hope in Darkness on kslpodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
So how can we teach people gratitude? How can we help them grasp this concept that is gratitude, like you psychologists do, and kind of point out the obvious? Because, when I was in recovery, we did a class on breathing. And at first I was like, this is stupid. I've said this before. I've been breathing my whole life. I don't need you guys to teach me to breathe. But when they taught me, I was like,
Yeah.
That is kind of cool. I never thought of it that way. And I think a lot of us think that we are thankful for things in our life. But I think gratitude is a little more than just being thankful. It's actually realizing what kind of impact it has on your life. Yeah. I'm thankful that I hit green lights on the way in here. But I'm grateful that I've got a car. Does that make sense?
Sure.
That really does affect my life, is being able to drive. But I was thankful for that I didn't hit many red lights or.
Yeah, I think gratitude, thankfulness, those things can exist on a continuum from kind of more typical everyday sorts of things like the traffic to really big things in your life. Actually, as you're talking, I think there's a correlation. There's something in common between breathing to relax and gratitude, and I think that is meditation. Both of those, like breathing to breathe, your autonomic nervous system has that covered. I sometimes joke with people in the office. I'll say, I'm like, breathing to stay alive, you got that covered. We don't need to practice that today. Yeah. But breathing to calm your body and center your mind and be focused and to work through your anxieties, you have to learn that. And part of that practice is a meditation. You're being meditative and focused in the moment.
You're using your big words like anatomic. What is that?
Like automatic, like just the nervous system that just runs your body 24/7. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Like I want to move my arm moves.
Well, that's more volition. You're doing that on purpose.
Okay, we're getting off. So how can we teach people gratitude?
So I think there's a meditative aspect to it. Sometimes we will say, "Oh, thanks" to somebody, but to really be grateful, I think there needs to be a pause and a meditation about an experience. You have to slow down and experience it. So there are a bunch of different exercises people can do to incorporate gratitude into their lives. But here's one I really like, and it's heavy. It's actually hard to do, and most people will probably not do it, but it has been shown to have a huge benefit in a person's life.
Project Recovery homework.
There you go. It's good homework. And we're coming up on Thanksgiving. This might be a good time. I mean, I think
But I know for me, in the recovery world, I am so grateful for so many people. So I'm really going to do this. And I think there might be a lot of people in the shoes just like mine going, hey, okay, yeah, because somebody made a difference.
Well, I think, man, we've had a lot of great stories this year. People sharing their gratitude for that one person that didn't give up on them, or that program that really made a difference in their life. And all of us, whether we've been in recovery or not, have people who we wouldn't be where we are today without those people, right?
Right.
So here's the exercise, and it's a great one. So it's called a gratitude letter, and this is how it works. People do variations. This is the Dr. Matt version, but the Dr. Matt version is just the research version. What do we know works? That's one of the things I ask myself a lot. I don't want to do things that can't be proven to work. And a gratitude letter would be the following. I would challenge people to pick somebody, a singular person in their life who is still living for this exercise, who has made a really big difference to them. Somebody who you could pause and meditate about their influence in your life and recognize a lot of specific instances where that person has done multiple things that have really improved your life. You're really grateful for them. And I would sit with that for a little while and just think about it, meditate on it. The second thing then you do is you draft a letter. You very directly write a letter to this person and you tell them two things. One, identify several specific things they've done. It's one thing to say, I'm really grateful for you. That's a nice thing to hear and it's a good thing to express. This exercise goes beyond that. The idea is, I'm grateful for you and here are the reasons why. And you would identify several specific behaviors, things that person has done for you that you really appreciate. And then go after each one and talk about the influence it had. I appreciate you for doing this, and here's how it affected me. And you write a letter like that. Okay, that's the meat of it. Mm-hmm. But the hard part, where most people they'll hand that off to someone or they'll mail it to them. And if that's as far as you can go, that's going to be a good thing. But the real benefit comes when you go to that person. So you might have to, if they live in Phoenix, you might have to hop on an airplane and fly down there or wherever. And you ask them, could I spend a few minutes with you? I have something to share. And you read them that letter out loud. You sit down, you say, I have something for you. It's a gift. I'd like to read it to you. You read that letter to that person.
Wow.
It's powerful. Very, very powerful. It's very bonding. And it is, I think, one of the very best, most real and raw ways you can express appreciation for someone in your life. Then everybody's going to cry. Mm-hmm. And everybody's going to hug. And then you leave the letter with them. That's the gift you give them.
It seems like a perfect Christmas gift.
It's a wonderful Christmas gift. It's a wonderful Thanksgiving thing to do. It's something that could be done, of course, any time of year. But this time of year, we all become a little bit more meditative, a little more sentimental. We often think about people in our lives this time of year that have meant something to us, who have helped us become who we are, helped us through hard times. You could do that with more than one person, of course.
Oh, my list would be long.
Yeah.
So you say you're a research-based kind of guy. So what does the research say about that?
So the research shows for people who are struggling with their own depression. So if you're somebody out there listening right now and you're struggling with your own depression.
Which goes hand in hand with addiction.
Yeah, the research, yeah, of course it does, and often leads to addiction, and there's that cycle. People who are in their own depression tend to have a relief of those depressive symptoms for at least 6 months after having this experience.
Wow.
So better than Prozac. It's a really good type of therapy.
I love it.
Yeah. It's a lasting effect. Now somebody might be listening and say, well, that's kind of, now we just turned it into a selfish act. But I don't know that it is, because the healthier you are, Casey, or I am, everybody that we come in contact with benefits. We have to make time to take care of ourselves. And one of the best ways to take care of ourselves is to connect with those people in our lives that we love and that love us and that mean something to us.
And I'll tie it back to the recovery world, because as we found out on this podcast, so many different people have said it, the opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah.
And this is going to help you form some of those great connections that can really help you sustain your recovery, to help you, and also show appreciation to those who have helped you. Like, it's one of the things that I struggle with in my recovery. And I told you, it wasn't until 6 months after I was out of recovery that I called my ex-wife and told her thank you. And there's still that list is still long of people that I want to sit down. Now, I tell them thank you all the time, and I think they know that I'm appreciative, but I would really like to tell people how they've affected my life and how they've changed me and what it's meant to me of getting this second shot. And I think that's so powerful to be able to do that. But it's also, I'm not going to lie, uncomfortable for me to do that.
For everybody,
and once again, I tell my kids every day when I drop them off at school, do something that scares you. And I've also got to listen to my own advice and do something that scares me. And I think I'm really going to sit down and pen a couple letters in the next week. Well,
I hope you do. I mean, you have to be prepared. The fact of the matter is, it's going to bond you with that person in a loving way for the rest of your life. Like, most people don't do this. It's also becoming very uncommon to get anything handwritten. Like, people don't write letters anymore. And I would say if you need to type it out. That's fine. But a handwritten letter takes it even to another level, and you give that to that person. I have some letters from my grandfather during World War II, and it's interesting to look at those letters, and like, he wrote this. This was his hand that made this. It's more personal. It's more of a connection with him if I look at those letters. Same thing when we do a handwritten thing. But of course, if you need to type it, that's fine too. It's really the sharing. And like you said, I know you, and you're a lot like me. I think we're both pretty free with saying thank you to people. That's just kind of, I think, both of our personalities. Yeah. But we're talking about going beyond. We're talking about getting into specifics.
Sometimes thank you becomes white noise, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
It's not a bad white noise, but it can be.
But we tell our kids at a young age, say please and thank you, say please and thank you, without really telling them why we're saying say please and thank you, just because it's the proper, polite thing to do. Yeah. But there should be some action behind that, and that's the thing that I've found in the recovery world is a lot of us know all this stuff, and it's up in the head and it's bouncing around. But if you don't put any action behind those thoughts, then they're not doing you any good. Because there's so many out there that go, yeah, I know drinking this much is bad, but I'm not doing anything about it.
Yeah, there's a difference between knowledge and insight. And, it's like pick up a pack of cigarettes and, on the side, what's the warning? Hey, moron, you're going to get cancer if you smoke this, is basically what it says,
Can I get 2 packs of those?
Yeah. So we all know. There's no kid in America that doesn't know that cigarettes are going to give you cancer. But smoking's on the rise. And we haven't obliterated smoking, although we know they're just basically little cancer sticks. Knowledge isn't enough. We have to really process and internalize information in order for it to change our behavior. Then it becomes insight. And so you're right. Most people who are struggling with addiction are struggling with that balance of how can I transition something from knowledge to insight. And as a psychologist, I would say behavior. You have to do something about it. We're all guilty, at least I have been, of thinking up great plans and not putting them into action. How many of us have done that? We all do it, I think. I know I do.
They taught me in the fraternity, if you failed to plan, you plan to fail.
Is that what they did?
Yeah.
And then they let you buy somebody's homework?
Oh, we never bought anyone's homework. Come on, Dr. Matt. Hey, so I want you guys to do this, if you will, and write your letter of gratitude. And then, if you don't mind, share it on Facebook and tell us what your results were and what it meant to you.
I would love to hear from people who this holiday season take us up on this challenge and do it. I've done it before. I actually have one in mind to do this year again. It's hard because I'm a bit of a crier, when you're saying, hey, I love you and I appreciate you, I'm grateful for you for these reasons, and this is how it's affected me. Boy, it doesn't get any more vulnerable and open than that. but what a great experience to connect with somebody who means a lot in your life.
And I've said before, vulnerability is a superpower. And if
really
you can
is.
embrace that, I challenge you to do so. So write a letter of gratitude, go to our Facebook, go to our Instagram, and let us know what it meant to you and what you found out by doing this exercise. We've also got a phone line now that you can call and ask questions to me, Dr. Matt, even Hippie Josh over there, and we'll be able to answer your questions. And so that number is 801-237-2455. That's 801-237-2455. So we wanted this show to be a little lighthearted and give you some homework, because we just want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for allowing us into your homes and into your lives, and for you guys coming on here and sharing your stories with us, because I can tell you right now, when I'm out and about, this podcast is making a difference.
Oh, it is. I'm always pleasantly surprised when somebody comes up and comments to me that they've been listening to the show and that they've turned friends and family onto it and it's educated them in some way or encouraged them in some way. It's really great. I want to take a second, though, and I'm going to model the letter, because I want to tell you that I'm really grateful for your friendship, Casey. I appreciate that. And people may or may not know that we've been friends for a lot longer than this podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you specifically one of the things that I'm grateful for, and that is I tend, as a person, I think I'm a pretty fun-loving guy, but I tend to get kind of serious sometimes and a little bit too focused and serious about life. And being around you always lightens my spirits, makes me feel happy. I always kind of see the lighter side of things, and I walk away from my interactions hanging out with you always feeling a little boosted. And so I wanted to tell you I'm grateful for you and the opportunity to keep doing something like this with my good friend.
Man, I'm not going to cry, but it means the world to me that you would be willing to give me a second shot and do this podcast with me. It means the world to me that you didn't walk away, because there were so many times that I gave ample reasons for people just to walk away from me. I was selfish. I was arrogant. I was, and I'm not saying that I'm humbled, but I have been humbled, and I'm grateful that I'm allowed to do this and be able to share these people's stories with everybody out there. So thank you for doing this, and thank you, Josh, for all you do, because they don't know what Josh does, but he does all our social. He goes above and beyond.
He does everything.
He really makes us look good. So the fact that you guys let us come into your hearts and come into your minds and come into your cars means the world to us. So have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thanks for listening. Project Recovery is a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.